All right, welcome to the poem analysis of a poem called Talk to the Peach Tree by Sipho Sephamla. As you can see, the poem consists of 22 lines and multiple stanzas, and it reads as follows. Let's talk to the swallows visiting us in summer. Ask how it is in other countries. Let's talk to the afternoon shadow. Ask how the day has been so far. Let's raise our pets to our level. Ask them what they don't know of us. Words have lost meaning. Like all notations, they've been misused. Most people will admit a whining woman can overstate her case. Talk to the paralyzing heat in the air. Inquire how long the mercilessness will last. Let's pick out items from the rubbish heap. Ask how the stench is like down there. Let's talk to the peach tree. Find out how it feels to be in the ground. Ask if it isn't enough eyeing what's been going on. Come on, let's talk to the devil himself. It's about time. Here we have our diction, which you have gone through by yourselves. Easy words to remember. And a bit of background. Sipho Sephamla was born in a township near Krugersdorp into a family of educators. He became a teacher, but after experiencing sharpfall firsthand when teaching there, he left the profession. He founded FUBA, the Federated Union of Black Artists, which gave voice to black artists of all disciplines. Okay. One thing that's very special about the poems that Sephamla wrote was that there was a lot of irony, satire, and humor. And these were qualities that weren't really popular and found with poets of the era who were politically loud and emotionally consciousness raising. This poem was written during the apartheid years, and he used it to voice his opinion on the political talks that took place between various parties before the formalized end of apartheid. He and his group saw the pen as the bomb, which could be used to fight against apartheid and social injustice. The negotiations between the various parties were ultimately successful, and South Africa became a democratic state in 1994. The speaker's peacemaking or peaceful attitude is clear in "It's About Time" in the last line. Okay, now let's look at the title. The peach tree appears in several of Sephamla's poems, and this poem is about the tree in his garden. And in a poem called The Will, which is one of his poems, it is one of his possessions, which he wittily bequeaths to his children. Okay, while making subtle comments about life under the apartheid system. The significance of the peach tree is that it was a gathering place for people in the township where much discussion, sharing of opinions, and information took place. It is also an example of personification. Now we see there are 21 lines, free verse, no recognizable poetic form. However, there is a pattern in stanzas 3, 7, 8, and 9, because all of them have the same pattern of word choice, the same length, and content. Furthermore, the first 3 and the last 3 stanzas follow the same pattern. Okay, stanzas 1 to 9 have a similar pattern of diction and arrangement. Stanza 10 is the only stanza that consists of 3 lines, okay, and it is done like this to stand out from the rest of the stanzas and to draw attention to the poet's message. Okay, when we go back, you'll see in the 4th, the 5th, and in the last stanza, okay, you will see that there is a bit of space after the numbers that indicates what line it is. There's a bit of a space there in the 4th, the 5th, and the last stanza. This is done intentionally because what the poet wants is for the reader to be alerted to the fact that those stanzas are commentary on the overall situation. There is repetition of the word talk 6 times. throughout the poem. And this highlights the need for dialogue between the oppressor and the oppressed. And in the last stanza, again, there's an indent, and this is to visually highlight the message of the poem. So not only is the last stanza 3 lines, but it also has an indent. Okay. Summary. This is a poem of protest against the apartheid government. The speaker wittily makes a series of rather odd, which kind of are absurd, suggestions about with whom to discuss politics. I mean, he goes from saying, should we discuss it with the birds, the shadows, the pits, the peach tree, and the air itself. It's absurd to try and discuss politics with such things. He ends the poem on a serious note and states that the devil himself should be addressed. This devil here is the leaders of the apartheid government. He's referring to them as the devil. And he also highlights the cruelty of the apartheid government in this poem and the necessity to fight it peacefully through negotiations. Okay, now we have come to the point where we are going to analyze the lines line by line, and we are starting off with lines 1 to 6. The top there are the lines, just to refresh your memory. So when we talk to the swallow, okay, these are the people that are visiting South Africa, okay, and in this line there is an apostrophe because we are speaking to objects that cannot answer. Okay, obviously a swallow is an animal. It cannot speak back to us. It cannot engage in conversation with us. Remember, an apostrophe is either someone who is not there, something that is not there, inanimate object, something that cannot speak back. Okay, when we ask how it is in other countries, we want to understand how people living in other countries. Are they the same as us? Are they better off or are they worse off? Talk to the afternoon shadow. This is obviously an example of personification as well as apostrophe. Ask how the day has been so far. Here we are saying we want to reflect on the state of affairs in the community or the country. But do you see how funny it is, because he is meaning that he wants to speak about the state of affairs of the apartheid government and the apartheid country, but he's reducing it to just asking how the day has been. Okay, let's raise our pets to our level. This refers to the young people who might have had radical ideas. Okay, remember Sepamla and his generation, they're very much about peaceful protests. And obviously the youth that came were more radical, more straightforward. So he's now saying that, maybe they should be included in these conversations that we have. Maybe we should listen to their ideas, their plans, and so on. Ask them what they don't know of us. Okay, here we can explain backgrounds to them. We can explain perspectives and history that they may not know or that they may not have understood. Okay. Also, when you look at all these things that Sepamla is saying, okay, if you take them literally, it's absurd. Talking to pets, not necessarily just, how we all just speak to our pets when you call them cute names, but actually having a full-on conversation. You can't do that. You also can't have a conversation with the afternoon shadow. But it's amusing to expect our pets, okay, if you look at it literally. Okay, you cannot bring a pet up and expect it to engage in political talk with you and to ask it, what do you want to know about my life, about my background, about anything? So that is why it's absurd. But obviously, figuratively, it makes sense because we know that he's referring to young people with radical ideas. And despite all this humor that is created, the underlying message is serious. He's saying, what do you, especially the white people, know about us, black people, people of color? Okay? During apartheid, there was little or no opportunity to understand or communicate with people from other races. One group of people was always superior and had their voice. any voice, a voice, whilst the other one had to remain silent. And that is why Sephamla is so big on voice, being heard, engaging in conversations, reaching a solution together. Okay, lines 7 to 10, analysis. The lines in these stanzas, okay, they are indented to show that these stanzas are commentaries and indicates a difference. So these are stanzas 4 and 5. Okay, you can automatically see there's a difference. Remember, it is not a typo. Also, the casual sounding repetitive let's talk of the previous lines have been dropped. These words must be taken seriously. So previously, let's talk was repeated, okay? But now that it's been dropped, the poet wants to be taken more seriously. And he states that words have lost their meaning. They could have lost their meaning due to censorship, propaganda, and the political climate. Okay. And because you can't say, or you couldn't say what you wanted to say, you couldn't spread the truth that needed to be spread, then it became useless to speak. It became useless to share information. That is what he's saying here. Attempts to negotiate change with the apartheid government had failed. Okay, negotiate involves speaking, using your words, getting your intentions across. Instead, more repressive measures had been introduced to suppress black people. So that the opposite effect of what they had hoped for. Misused notations refers to the words and the symbols that can be used. Okay, these are communication tools which have become so warped that their original intentions have become lost. Words have literally lost their meaning. Language has been twisted and used to convey lies, propaganda, and cannot be trusted, which is very on point for the time that they were living in with the apartheid government and propaganda and everyone just living in a state of lies and misinformation and meaningless words. Okay. Whining in this situation has a negative connotation of high-pitched complaining without valid reason. Okay. The words of line 10 are a reminder of the saying, "The lady doth protest too much." So when people complain about the same thing in the same way, their plight is often ignored. And in this case, it would have been black people, people of color, complaining, pleading that they needed change, they needed to be equal, they needed to have basic human rights. And they were going about it, trying to have negotiations, trying to have peaceful conversations and peaceful protests. And what ended up happening? They were ignored. So their words and their meanings became lost. Okay, on to the analysis of lines 11 and 12 and 13 and 14. So these are short analysis. So I'll read the lines. Talk to the paralyzing heat in the air. Inquire how long the mercilessness will last. So we have two metaphors in these two lines. The first one being paralyzing heat. And from the diction slide, we saw that paralyzing heat is heat to the point where you cannot do anything. So here, the apartheid laws are compared to this kind of intense heat that makes it difficult and prevents people from moving, from doing anything. Okay, and this emphasizes the harshness of the apartheid laws that were very restrictive with severe penalties if they were broken. Okay, then mercilessness is the second metaphor. And the question, inquiring how long the mercilessness will last, it emphasizes how these oppressors had no empathy, mercy, or compassion for the oppressed people. How long were the oppressed people going to continue to be treated in such a harsh and unforgiving manner? Okay, they're asking these things. They want questions. Okay, they want change. And so now, who else are they going to speak to? They must now speak to the heat. They must speak to everyone else but those who are oppressing them, because those who are oppressing them refuse to listen to them. Okay, lines 13 and 14. Let's pick out items from the rubbish heap. Ask how the stench is like down there. Here, stench has a very negative connotation. Connotation being its feelings that are associated with the word and its kind of emotional meaning. So stench refers to a very disgusting smell. And it also refers to the effects of a rotten system. And in this case, that was apartheid. Okay. The words rubbish heap, stench, and down there relate to the way black people were regarded by the authorities. Unwanted things that were to be thrown away, something that created a bad smell or stench. All very negative connotated words. And this is how black people were described and how they were looked down. Okay, the tone is serious and the intention is to describe the reality of the situation of black people who were regarded as lacking value and were disposable. So if you are trying to speak to someone who sees you like this, it is obviously not going to be a very fruitful conversation. And that is why they are saying, who must we speak to? No one is willing to listen to us. Okay, lines 15 and 16 that say, let's talk to the peach tree, find out how it feels to be in the ground. So literally, a peach tree is rooted in a permanent place in the garden. Okay, remember he had one in his home. The tree will tell him how it feels to be rooted and fruitful in a place you can call your own. The connotation of rooted creates a sense of belonging. The peach tree has land that it belongs to. And this hits very deeply because figuratively, black people did not have land. They were not even regarded as citizens. They had no sense of belonging. They were not allowed to buy or own land during apartheid. And again, they literally had to go with passes to move from one place to another. So now they have to go to this peach tree and figuratively ask it, how does it feel to have something that we do not have? To be rooted, to be grounded, to have a sense of belonging. Lines 17 and 18, let's talk to the moon going down. Ask if it isn't enough eyeing what's been going on. So, moon going down. This is where the light of the moon will disappear as it goes down, as it does every day. This is symbolic of them losing hope. Okay, just imagine the moon going down. As the moon goes down and its light is getting dimmer and dimmer, that is their hope that is becoming less and less. The moon is personified. It is aware of their situation being black people and all of the mistreatment, because they can literally see what is happening. Okay, the setting of the moon will lead to daylight. So yes, it is setting and the light is becoming dimmer. It will eventually lead to daylight. Okay, and daylight is associated with new day, new hope. Their situation is visible to the whole world, but nobody has done anything to effectively change their situation. So in this case, the new day does not bring new hope for them, because if someone was willing to fight for them and try all these things, then they would have their hope restored. But here nothing is happening. So even though a new day comes that should bring new opportunities, it did not, because nothing was changing for them. And onto our last stanza, lines 19 to 21, which say, come on, let's talk to the devil himself. It's about time. These lines are indented, as we said, just like lines 7 to 10, fourth and fifth stanzas, in order to make them stand out. These indents alert the reader to the fact that these lines are commentary on the overall situation. So, come on, this is a call to action. He is encouraging himself and others to talk to those who can affect change. This is emphasized by the repetition of let's talk. Let's find people, speak to them. Let us see if they can help us. Let us do something, myself included. Let's do something. Here the devil are the oppressors or the apartheid system. So people have to talk to the devil in order to bring about change. They have no option but to engage with the enemy. Okay, so you have to speak to that person or that organization that is causing you harm, right? And obviously to you, as someone who's being oppressed, you will see them as the devil, as the absolute worst, as your enemy. It's about time. The time has come to speak directly to the powers who have been oppressing the black people for too long. There is no time to waste. Action is necessary because you have been going through this time and period of oppression for so long. There comes a point where it needs to stop. Okay, and negotiations between the parties, between the people and those in power, it needs to happen to bring about change. The final stanza creates a sense of urgency and a realization that a solution had to be found. It was time for negotiations. It was time for talking. Okay, so the tone of this poem is absurd. It's cynical. There is despair, frustration, but it's also conversational. Okay, he's speaking, he is encouraging conversation, but he's frustrated, hence him speaking to everything that cannot answer him back. There is despair. What are we to do? It is absurd, the fact that he is addressing all of these inanimate objects. Then mood, apprehensive, okay, and anxious. You don't know what's going to happen, but you need something to happen. And the last slide, we have the themes. And the themes consist of the opening of channels of communication, okay, because we need to discuss important matters with people so that some kind of change can happen. The speaker encourages the oppressed people to exhaust all peaceful forms of communication for them to address apartheid. Okay, you see, peaceful compared to the youth who were radical, for example. But you see how Sepamla is more about speaking, getting some kind of peaceful resolution and peaceful actions that can get to that peaceful resolution. Okay, another theme is that there is this desire for change, also to create an awareness of the harsh realities of life in South Africa under the apartheid rule, and lastly, to highlight some of the unconventional ways in which politics was discussed during the apartheid era. Okay, remember again, the peach tree was a gathering place for people to speak. You know, remember, back then you couldn't gather in huge groups. You had to be in certain places. You weren't allowed in certain places. So it's very difficult to have these kinds of discussions and meetings. So it had to eventually become very unconventional. So yes, that is the end of this poem. Please let me know if you have any questions.